Good morning. I'm Nova Blake, and this is your complete political briefing for Wednesday, April 8th, 2026. Today, the battle for control of Congress is already underway, with special elections, Supreme Court ballot rulings, and redistricting wars reshaping the map ahead of November's midterms. Let's get into it, starting with the top stories from across the American political landscape. The battle for control of the United States House of Representatives is heating up faster than any midterm cycle in recent memory. Special House elections are underway in Georgia and New Jersey this April, while a redistricting referendum in Virginia is drawing massive early voter turnout. All of them bellwethers for which party will control Congress after November 3rd. Democrats need a net gain of just 3 seats to flip the House and install Hakeem Jeffries as Speaker. In Georgia, the runoff to fill the congressional seat once held by Firebrand Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is a nationally watched contest between Trump-backed Republican Clay Fuller and retired Brigadier General and cattle farmer Shawn Harris, a Democrat. The district has a strong Republican lean, but Harris's military background and the competitive nature of the runoff have drawn national attention and fundraising from both parties. A Democratic win in this race would send a powerful signal about Republican vulnerability in safe-seeming districts. The Supreme Court heard arguments last month in a landmark case, Watson versus Republican National Committee, that could alter the counting of mail-in ballots in time for the November midterms. The court's conservative majority signaled strong skepticism towards state laws that allow absentee ballots postmarked by Election Day to be counted if received within a grace period of up to 5 business days afterward. A ruling is expected by late June and would affect mail ballot deadlines in 30 states plus the District of Columbia. In Virginia, a redistricting referendum is drawing record early voter turnout ahead of its April ballot date. Democrats are pushing to redraw the state's congressional maps before November's elections, while Republicans are calling the effort an unconstitutional power grab. Virginia's outcome is being watched as a preview of redistricting battles still pending in Florida, and with Democrats having already successfully redrawn maps in California to eliminate 5 Republican-leaning districts. House Democrats' flagship fundraising committee raised $69 million in the first quarter of 2026, nearly double its fundraising from the same point in the last election cycle. House Majority PAC President Mike Smith called it the strongest fundraising start in an election year in the organization's history. The surge in Democratic fundraising reflects growing opposition party energy fueled by rising gas prices, the Iran war, and the longest agency shutdown in American history. The Trump administration has been engaged in what observers are calling an unprecedented campaign to reshape voting rules before November. In addition to Trump's mail-in voting executive order, now facing at least 4 federal lawsuits, the DOJ has sued 30 states for refusing to hand over sensitive voter data. A person familiar with Trump's thinking said the president's intention is to nationalize election administration before the midterms, a move that legal experts across the political spectrum say has no constitutional basis. Senator Susan Collins of Maine, one of the most endangered Republican incumbents heading into the midterms, publicly broke with the White House this week over the administration's proposed budget cuts to domestic spending. Collins called the cuts unacceptable and warned they would face significant Republican resistance in the Senate. Her comments underscore how the White House's record defense budget, paired with deep domestic cuts, is creating friction even within the Republican majority. The Illinois Democratic primary earlier this spring produced a significant winner in Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, whose anti-ICE platform and support from Governor J.B. Pritzker gave her a decisive primary victory in her congressional race. Stratton's win is being cited by national Democrats as proof that a progressive, anti-immigration enforcement message is energizing Democratic primary voters heading into the fall. Democrats also see growing opportunity in state-level races as Republicans retire from gubernatorial, legislative, and judicial positions in unexpected numbers. The Wisconsin Supreme Court election this April is another high-stakes ballot in a year when state judiciary races have taken on outsized national importance. Wisconsin is a swing state that could determine both the Senate and the presidential map in future cycles, and the Supreme Court race there will shape rulings on abortion access, voting rights, and legislative redistricting for years. Both parties are pouring money into the race, which falls on the same ballot as the Georgia and New Jersey special congressional elections. Trump approval ratings have sunk to the lowest point of his second term, according to multiple polls released this week. The combination of rising gas prices above $4 per gallon, the prolonged DHS shutdown, American fighter jets being downed in combat, and the administration's shifting war narratives have all driven the numbers down. Democrats say the trifecta of economic stress, institutional chaos, and war casualties is forming the strongest structural argument for a House takeover since the wave elections of 2018. Now turning to Washington and the latest actions from the current administration. Here are 10 significant developments from the administration this week. President Trump signed an executive order last Friday targeting college athletics, directing federal agencies to withhold grants from universities that violate governing body rules on transfers, eligibility, and athlete compensation. The order establishes a 5-year maximum athletic eligibility window, limits undergraduate transfers to one without a waiting period, and takes effect August 1st. Legal experts widely expect immediate challenges from college athletes and advocacy groups. The Department of Justice's Office of Legal Counsel concluded this week that the Presidential Records Act, which requires presidents to preserve and hand over official papers to the National Archives, is unconstitutional. The legally non-binding opinion was authored by Assistant Attorney General T. Elliott Geiser and opens the door for the administration to resist congressional oversight of its internal records. The opinion contradicts decades of legal understanding and is expected to face challenges in federal court. The Trump administration has now sued 30 states and the District of Columbia for refusing to provide voter data, including driver's license numbers and partial Social Security numbers. The data demands are part of the administration's effort to build a federal voter eligibility list under the mail-in voting executive order signed March 31st. Civil liberties groups have called the data demands an unconstitutional federal intrusion into state-administered elections. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche, installed after Pam Bondi's firing, publicly announced that the Epstein investigation would not be a priority going forward at the Justice Department. The House Oversight Committee immediately pushed back, saying it will proceed with a subpoena requiring Bondi to testify under oath about her handling of the Epstein files. Democrats and Republicans on the committee said the firing of the Attorney General does not extinguish Congress's legal subpoena authority. The Trump administration's White House ballroom construction project received final approval from the National Capital Planning Commission on April 2nd, even as a federal judge has separately blocked the project pending congressional authorization. The administration has filed an appeal of the injunction, and construction workers remain on standby as the legal battle over the $400 million project continues. The ballroom project has become a symbol for critics of what they call the administration's disregard for normal legal procedures. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has taken steps to block or delay military promotion of more than a dozen Black and female senior officers across all 4 branches of the armed forces, according to 9 United States officials familiar with the process. The officers were targeted because of their race, gender, or perceived political affiliation, the officials said. The revelations add to mounting congressional oversight inquiries into Hegseth's personnel management at the Pentagon. The White House released a fact sheet confirming the structure of the new pharmaceutical tariff regime signed into executive order on April 2nd. Companies that agree to bring drug production to the United States and enter most favored nation pricing deals with the Department of Health and Human Services will pay 0 tariffs on patented pharmaceuticals. Companies that do neither will face a 100% tariff once a 120 to 180-day phase-in period expires. The Trump administration's 2027 budget proposal calls for a radical expansion of immigration detention capacity, seeking 100,000 adult ICE detention beds and 30,000 family detention beds. The budget designation for these beds would go through the reconciliation process, allowing passage with only a simple Senate majority and no Democratic votes required. The proposal also maintains ICE funding at current levels and continues funding for border wall construction. The White House also formally requested $152 million in its 2027 budget to fund the first year of reopening Alcatraz Island as what it calls a state-of-the-art secure prison facility. The proposal builds on a broader $5 billion Bureau of Prisons investment included in the administration's reconciliation legislation and reflects Trump's long-standing interest in high-profile detention sites. Critics called the Alcatraz plan costly, impractical, and symbolic rather than functional. The United States doubled its reinsurance guarantee program for ships willing to transit the Strait of Hormuz earlier this week, increasing American backing from $20 billion to $40 billion for vessels willing to attempt passage through the waterway. The move came as part of the administration's effort to restart commercial shipping through the strait before a formal ceasefire or military victory made the passage secure. Maritime traffic has remained near zero since the war began on February 28th. That's your full briefing for Wednesday, April 8th, 2026. I'm Nova Blake. Stay informed, stay ahead. We'll see you next time.